Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
I'm having one of them days. Shot 2 videos earlier. Neither one came out for reasons far too complicated to explain. So here I am reshooting the second video. What about the first video? Oh, I reshot that one. I just didn't mention in that video what I was doing for fear I'd jinx myself. But Joey sent me, so Steve, check this out, from Georgia, WSB TV. Father says his daughter's car is melting in the driveway. Honda says it's not covered by warranty. So Michael Seiden wrote this. The family says one of their cars is melting away when left outside, which is where most cars spend much of their time. Channel 2's Michael Seiden spoke with the owner of a 2022 Honda Civic, and the father says the trim on the car owned by his daughter started melting as if someone shot a ray gun at the car. He says last week, parts of the car from the driver's side mirror to the front bumper and the passenger side mirror started warping and paint began to bubble up. Said, I'd never seen anything like it. It also warped and started melting and disintegrating. So his daughter brought the car home from college. It's been sitting in the driveway for a little while. And on Tuesday morning, I got a text from my daughter. She went over to her car and noticed that the paint was bubbling up. So they took the car to a local Honda dealer and spoke with a service advisor who explained the damage must have been caused by the sun. That's that big bright thing out there. He said the sunlight had reflected off a house window and acted like a magnifying glass. Now, the father doesn't know if he wants to believe that or not, but the reporter did a quick online search and found that the family here aren't the only ones experiencing this problem. Over a period of time, he found several message boards where Honda owners vented about similar issues. It's the melting Honda, one post read. According to an article posted on Honda's website back in 2019, this type of damage is not covered by the warranty because the company says it's environmental. It's caused by the conditions in which you keep the car. Now, the reporter shared this concern with Honda and got a statement back from a spokesperson that said that the damage, though rare, is not covered by the warranty, but it implies that they are aware of the problem. It is a long-established fact that focused sunlight can heat surfaces and cause damage, depending on the intensity and time of exposure. This sort of damage is not isolated to automobiles or to Honda in particular. In short, under the right circumstances, while rare, reflected sunlight can cause damage, and Honda's limited warranties do not cover that damage. So that's a public relations person from Honda and Acura speaking there. The family here says they aren't taking no for an answer. They filed a complaint with Honda's corporate office. Meanwhile, the Window and Door Manufacturers Association says tens of millions of energy-efficient windows are in homes and buildings right now, and melting problems related to them are rare, but they are known. Because the question is, how do you keep those windows energy-efficient? Do they reflect back the light that is reflected or is shined upon them? And so I can tell you a couple things here. First of all, in London, there's a building that nicknamed called the Walkie-Talkie because of its shape. But it's very, very reflective. And people near it have said that it's actually caught things on fire and melted things because bright sunlight hitting this building then focuses down and it hits other things. So if you don't believe me, type in London Walkie-Talkie building and sunshine or something, and you'll get a whole raft of stories about it. I also saw a documentary about a different building that had the same complaints about it. And, if you are focusing light on something, it can cause problems. But this gets us back to the problem with the car. You've got a Honda, park it in your driveway, and you come out and the paint's bubbling and the plastic is warping. And is that a defect? Because remember, the warranty doesn't cover everything that can happen to your car. It covers defects in material and workmanship. Are the materials, the things it's made out of, defective, or was it put together wrong? Workmanship. And so, obviously, if it's caused by being parked next to something that overheats it, then that wouldn't be covered by warranty. So the real question is it where this car is parked, or would this happen if it was parked someplace else? That's the real issue here. And so I know a lot of people say, but Steve, that doesn't sound quite right, that you can just park your car in your own driveway and it melts or gets warped or bubbles up paint. It does sound weird. But the question again is, if you park it someplace else, will that happen? And where is it parked? Are there windows here that are shining directly on it on bright sunny days, certain times of the year? I don't know. But there are a few things you need to think about here because you say, but Steve, other people have complained about this. with Honda. Well, have other people complained about it with other makes and models of cars? I don't know. That's the question, is if you found this with respect to other cars parked similarly. That makes you wonder. But remember again, it's materials and workmanship. So if it was materials, it would be happening to a lot of these cars, right? And if it was workmanship, it could theoretically happen to one car or a group of cars that have one problem with how they're put together. Best example I can think of is a while back I did a story where they traced a problem with the car to setting on a torque wrench in a factory that had been set improperly for one shift. So every car that came down the assembly line during that one shift had a nut torqued too lightly, and later on down the road, it would work itself loose and cause something to come apart. And I forgot it was a shifter, or it may have been the emergency brake, but something up front connected by a cable to something somewhere else. And they traced that to one particular shift on an assembly line. So they knew, okay, all of these cars had a problem with workmanship. Now, when it comes to materials or parts, I've mentioned before I had a Ford vehicle years and years and years ago that was subject to a water pump recall. I got a note that said your vehicle might be subject to this recall because it might have a bad water pump in it. Take this card to a dealership, show them, blah, blah, blah. Guy comes up, pops the hood, takes one look at it, and goes, you're good to go. I go, I'm just curious, how do you know that? And he goes, because the water pumps we're looking for all have a serial number on them, and we know the serial number range. That was a bad batch that Ford got from their supplier. So it's got to be between this number and this number. If it's not in there, it's not part of that bad batch. Okay? So I suppose it's possible as a bad batch of parts that are plastic out there. But again, it seems very, very odd to be limited to one car or a bunch of cars unless it was widespread, because Hondas, there's a lot of them on the road. And if they all have this problem, it'd be more widespread than a couple random things popping up on a message board. Now, I don't know how many messages has popped up. I always tell people that instead of going to bulletin boards and complaint boards and things like that, go to NHTSA, National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA.gov. They've got a website, and you can track several things: recalls, technical service bulletins, and consumer complaints. So you can find out if consumers are complaining to NHTSA about a specific problem. So you could type in Honda with the year and the model. It's a 2022 Honda Civic. Type that in and look for problems regarding paint or plastic body parts and see if there's a lot of problems there. And that's not necessarily definitive on this, but it'll give you an idea. Because I've had people tell me before, they say, Steve, I got this problem with my vehicle. I took it to a dealership, and the service advisor goes, that's weird. We've never heard of that before. And then I went back and I looked at NHTSA, and it turns out there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of complaints filed about this exact same thing. So that's one way you can kind of cut through that noise. Because I remember with the dual clutch transmissions, I had customers tell me that they took their vehicle to a Ford dealer and the service rep goes, your transmission's shifting funny? That's strange. We've never heard of that with this car before. Person goes and sits in the waiting room and realizes that they're all sitting there with the exact same cars. And the service advisor is BSing everyone, going, we've never heard of this before. We've never heard of this before. It turns out that Ford had actually issued memoranda to the dealership saying, if people come in and complain, do not tell them this is with every single car out there, because we're worried that people will then start hearing about it and then they'll go, oh, my car is shifting funny. But when someone comes in and their car is doing something, the service advisor knows darn well what it is and goes, we've never heard of this before. Really? What planet do you live on, my friend? And so there is always that possibility. But when it comes down to this, is whether or not this would have happened if the car had been parked anyplace else. Because Honda and any other car company out there cannot make cars bulletproof so they can withstand everything and anything thrown at them. But on the other hand, car companies can surprise us. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, guys my age will remember this. The big three automakers in America, GM, Ford, and Chrysler, experimented with a new paint process that skipped a few steps. And a few years down the road, the cars would start shedding their paint. Paint would just come off in big sheets. And you're driving along, and you come out one morning, there's a big old piece of paint missing from your car. It came off last night when you're driving. You didn't even know it happened. Or heavy rain, you come out, your car's just got big spots on it where the paint's peeled off. And if it happened outside of warranty, and you brought your car into the dealer and said, hey, I got paint peeling off my car, they go, oh, you're outside of warranty. We'll estimate what it'll cost to repaint that for you, but it's going to cost you. And you go, but this is a widespread problem. They go, not under warranty, it's not, because many of those cars, most of them made it out of warranty. And I talked to guys who worked at the car companies back then and asked them about it. They said, oh yeah, it was an experiment. We saved some money short term, but it cost us long term, because a lot of people, when they found out they would not get coverage for the paint peeling off their cars just outside of warranty, they're like, okay, I'm going to go buy a foreign car. And that is what always surprised me, because a lot of the car companies, as a matter of goodwill, could have repainted some of these cars. They didn't. And by doing that, they lost customers. Now, I did meet people who say, Steve, Ford screwed me over. I'll never buy another Ford. They go buy a GM. I had people go, Steve, I bought a GM. They screwed me over. I'll go buy a Chrysler. And so a lot of times I think they thought, well, it's just, we lost a customer, we'll gain a customer. It's like musical chairs. No. Many people said, I got screwed over by an American car company. I'm going to go buy a foreign car. And that's actually what drove a lot of people to buy foreign cars, at least in southeastern Michigan, in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, was simply the quality of the cars and the way they were treated when they complained about them. And I mean, I've heard just hellacious stories about people with problems just outside of warranty, where you go, they could have done that as a goodwill gesture, but they didn't. And there you go. But so in this situation, the real question is, will this guy's car do this, or the woman's car, do this if it's parked someplace else? Or is it because it's parked near a window, it's reflecting right onto it, and on hot days, bright sunshine causes this to happen? Because if it's an environmental cause making it happen, obviously it's not covered. But if the car just does this when you park it outdoors and it's not cloudy and it's just direct sunlight, that would be a problem. But I have a feeling that's not the case. So there you go. Joey, thanks for sending from WSB TV. They do great consumer work there. And that was Michael Seiden doing that story. Father says his daughter's car is melting in the driveway, like MacArthur Park. Honda says it's not covered by warranty. Questions or comments, put them below this. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. To be happy in life, it helps if you don't think too much.